Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen W. Long, and welcome to The Writing Life. Really happy to talk today with Don O Dyer. And I want to start, Don, with some statistics.
Okay.
And I was thinking, I'm impressed with this guy, and I just want to tell you why. So you've written 6 books, 5 novels, 1 memoir.
Exactly.
And I'd like to, I just learned about that, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that as well. But I don't know how doing what you've done puts you in such a small category. So I read that about 0.1% to 1% of the population has actually published a book. So that's pretty small. About 8% of the population has completed a manuscript, but and 80% of the population dreams of being a published author, but 97%, this is a lot, of the people who've attempted to complete a manuscript have given up before it's published.
Yeah.
So it's a small group of people who have actually done what you've done, and you've done it 6 times. So I think I maybe know a little bit about this, but I wanted to talk to you about your writing journey, and I want to start with something you told me before, and that is you don't consider yourself a novelist, but rather a storyteller.
Yes.
So talk about that.
Well, I have no formal training in how a novel is constructed. I think, though, that people who read a lot and read a lot of novels, it's there's sort of this literary osmosis or something. You
It gives you a sense.
You internalize the structure, and so when you're writing, it works out that way. So maybe I'm just being hopeful about that. Yeah.
Actually, you know, I'm going to skip ahead in my notes because you hit on something. If you're going to be a writer, you have to be a reader. Yeah. Which obviously you're both. So what are you drawn to in terms of what you like to read?
Well, years ago I read lots of novels, and I didn't have a television until I was 55 years old. Okay. And so I spent a lot of time at the library, and there was a period of about 7 or 8 months where I lived in a town in Denmark, and I just read every English book they had in the library, which was Steinbeck and Lolita. What was that guy's name?
Lolita?
Yeah. Anyway,
I've
and
almost
Hemingway,
got it.
but just the classics, really. And so it's after you read enough, it just sort of turns into you understand it intrinsically.
I think there's to formalize it a little bit. I've heard that it's like a play has acts.
Yes, exactly.
And of course there's an arc, a character arc. Yeah. Well, I had a teacher who said, what you need to do is get your character up a tree. Yeah. And then throw rocks at them. In other words, you have to keep the pressure on, and it has to escalate, or that's one way to do that.
That's a good description.
Yeah. So there's a couple of general approaches, and one way to say it is plotters and pantsers, people who go by the seat of their pants. Yeah. When you set out to write something, what's your process?
Well, that's interesting, because years ago I heard an interview with the guy who was involved in the making of the film Terminator. Oh. And he said that, and I've never seen the film, but from what I know of it, there's this bad guy that can morph into different things throughout the film. From one thing. And he said what they did when they were filming this was they would create a milepost, I guess you might say it, of in the transformation. And so then the software would just automatically go from one milepost to the next.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And yeah, and it would give it an organic morphing, if you will. But anyway, so that's sort of what I do. Is I have milestones that the first chapter is going to have this sort of catchy thing going on, and then another 25 pages later is another milestone, another one, and so I just write between the milestones, just fill in the gaps, basically.
Okay. So you know you're going to hit certain points.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a book called The Marshall Plan.
Okay, huh.
And the author's name is Marshall, and he does that. I read the book, and it's not what you're doing, but what he suggests, I couldn't do that. Yeah. He says, on page 17, there needs to be a crisis, and on page 106, you need to resolve
Epiphany
that. Yeah. Huh. So I will say, and something that maybe folks can keep in mind, and again, something I've been told is, you never want to answer a dramatic question before you ask the next one.
Yeah.
And it's the dramatic questions that pull you through.
Right.
The reader wants to find out about that, and so
right.
you'll pose a question or set up a situation, and then resolve that.
Yeah, I once, somewhere in college, I don't know what class it was, but the professor, I remember saying that the structure should be yes, but.
Okay.
But at the end of each paragraph, at the end of that paragraph, you say yes, that was what happened, but.
So that's the resolution,
right?
And the but is the next dramatic question.
It takes the next step forward, which is kind of a easy method, but
different words, I think, for the same thing.
Yeah, right.
So kind of getting back to how structured your approach is, I've said this before, but I think it's so illustrative. Stephen King says that writing for him is like walking down a path and seeing something interesting sticking onto the ground. And he doesn't know what it is, but it's interesting. Well, of course, that's the kernel of an idea. And he says, I dig around it or brush around it, and what I expose may be a short story, it may be a novel. He says, I don't know until so in other words, he's sort of discovering as he goes.
Right.
Other people, and I think it's John Irving, says the first thing he writes is the last sentence of the story. And the reason he does that, he said, you can't hit a target if you don't know where you're aiming.
Okay.
So at least initially, those are very different approaches.
Right.
But
I would. Irving's point of view, I understand, because it's sort of what I do. Is that I know what the end is going to be.
Okay.
And so the milestones on the way there, each time I hit one of those milestones, I know that I'm getting closer. And
okay.
And I also know that I can be rewriting this whole thing, several times.
Well, again, I've said this so often, but writing is rewriting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So. This isn't a spoiler. I don't want to give anything away, but it's interesting that you say you know the end, because in the pigskin heist, it's a little bit sad. There's a little. To me, it was a little bit. The ending was a little bit sad. Probably true to life, but you knew that was going to happen.
Right. Well, it's a fun book for starters. I mean, everybody.
Sure.
I'm in the very first chapter sort of sets the tone for it, where it's a professor's son is joined the football team, and he's a classic student and a very good classic student, and his father is against it, and then to explain why he's against him playing football or sports, whatever, he gets this essay that he had framed hanging on the wall that had come from he's the head of the English department, it came from one of the other instructors at the university, that it's this essay that a student wrote called On My Way to the Pros. And it's prose is misspelled. He spells it P-R-O-S-E.
Right.
When he means to be, he's on his way to the professional football league.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so, this just galled the guy's father so bad that this is what happens to at a university that professors and the faculty have to sort of cater to this, and he didn't want his son to be part of that. And anyway, it's just a fun way to start it, and it keeps it sort of academic as well, because a lot of the book is about a football team too, but with it.
Well, juxtaposed to the experiment that he writes about. And
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the Ure Miller.
Yeah, right. Which I didn't know was real, and you made me look it up, and it is real.
No, I remember that from college in botany class. A teacher, an instructor, told us this is one of the most important things that's ever happened in science. You know, and nobody really knows about it.
Sure.
But it's how amino acids get created just from out of thin air, basically. It's what do they call that? The primordial
soup.
The primordial soup.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a interesting sort of subtext in the film. Yeah. The book.
There's a couple of things, and I've just finished The Pigskin Heist. There's a couple of things in there that strike me as more a part of you than maybe you would let on, and that experiment was one. Did you do that? Were you moved by that? It seems to take on great importance.
It just seems like it. We're talking about the Ure Miller experiment in 1957, I think, or 55 or something. And I just think it ought to be front page news, you know, and it's not. So I just did my part to get it out there, I guess. So.
Well, like I said, I didn't know about it, and you made me look it up. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you talked about the first chapter, how this is introduced, and it made me think that, again, you and I have talked a little bit about this. We're both kind of word guys, and you're interested in etymology.
Right.
And the protagonist's father talks about Robles, or oh my goodness, robust. The word was robust,
yeah,
right? And I was thinking that in Spanish, Robles means oak.
Yeah.
And so Paso Robles is.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there you go.
Robust means
strong as
oak wood in Latin.
Yeah. So to me, these are little Easter eggs.
Yeah.
And have you done that in other work?
Of course. I like little Easter eggs here and there, but you know, I sort of am a fan of etymology, the history of words, word origins, and it's just fun. At one point, I decided I was going to back 25 years ago or so, but I was going to make one of those daily calendars, you know, that you have on your desk.
Okay.
That has a word origin on each one, and I spent like a year working on that, getting it all ready to go, and then suddenly nobody used the calendar anymore because they had it on their phone, you know, and it's like, so I had, you know, 350 or 65 words, origins set aside, you know.
I misunderstood. I thought you had a calendar and was doing this for yourself. You were going to make this for distribution.
Yes, right.
Oh, I'd take one.
Yeah.
I think they're great.
They're pretty interesting. The one you mentioned the other day, sincere, which is one of my favorites, a boat building term. You never would think of that.
Sure.
But it means without wax.
Right.
And in the old days when they'd make a ship, would build a ship, they'd then launch it and see if there were any leaks. And if there were leaks, they'd pull it back on the land and fill it the leaks full of wax.
Right.
So a sincere boat was one that had no wax. It means without wax. You know. So it's really, you know, just the little stories behind words like that are just, to me, fun and interesting.
And English is interesting because we draw from so many sources.
Oh yeah, right.
And
everybody ought to take a history of the English language course because it is really interesting.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, two things, I guess. Well, let me start with this one. In your bio, I read that you're from Southern California.
Yes.
And where? And because I am as well.
Well, I was born in Los Angeles and raised thereabouts, but you know, it's unfortunate, but I was abandoned. My brother and sister and I were abandoned, and we found out later when I was 50 years old or something that we have another sister that I met for the first time when I was 50. But so we were farmed out to foster homes. But
oh my gosh!
My grandparents, my grandfather was a boat builder, which is part of the reasons why I'm interested in boats and ships and stuff. But he built boats in Newport, which is south of L.A. and down and Huntington Beach. But he got throat cancer, and so our grandmother and grandparents were so poor they really couldn't take us in. They'd take us in for 4 or 5 months, and then we'd have to go to a foster home for 3 months, and then you get transferred to another foster home. And so I've lived a sort of scattered childhood around the Los Angeles area, and then ended up my father, who abandoned us 4 times, got married for the 4th time and moved to Oklahoma, and then they recruited us there, and so I ended up my last few years in high school in Oklahoma.
And you went to college there?
Yeah, University of Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yes. So.
Yeah, so that was kind of the other thing I wanted to ask about. You graduated from the letters program?
Yes.
Okay, so talk about that a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, again, I could speculate what that means, but I don't really know.
It's a letters program is an honors program. You had to have a 3.2 grade point average to get in and to get out. Otherwise, you just end up with a arts and anyway, I can't remember the rest of it. But so in it, you had to do 2 languages, one modern, one ancient.
Okay.
And you had to do history of art, history of science, and lots of science. I mean, lots of history. So,
okay.
And literature. So it's so I ended up doing Latin and French for my languages.
Oh, okay.
And just basically took virtually every history course they had there at the university, and so it was a really good education. Actually, after I'd finished school there, I was contemplating going to graduate school or maybe even law school, and I took the LSAT, and one of the people there that I talked with said that actually is the best background for a law student is the letters program at the
oh, that's
there.
interesting.
So, yeah. Well, you learn Latin, and as you know, in England, when the French conquered, all of their legal system was based on Latin, and that's why there's so much Latin in the English language, is because that was anyway. So, but I didn't go to law school, and I'm glad.
Yeah. Oh, really? It seems like it would be terrific.
Well, I just didn't want to be in debt, you know. At the time, I was working 6 nights a week and going to school. And one of the other folks that I worked with was going to medical school, and he had to have letters to prove that he could raise $60,000, or that he was qualified for $60,000 worth of loans before they'd even let him into the medical at Tulane, and I just thought, man, I don't want to owe anybody $60,000.
Yeah. I mean, in my world, that's a lot now.
Yeah.
This in the
70s. Yeah.
Sort of breathtaking.
Yeah, really. I was shocked by it. He had to provide, proof that he could do that, which is amazing.
We're going to need more time, I think. You talked a couple of things. You had 2 languages, and so do I remember correctly that you were in Denmark?
Yeah.
And that was that unrelated to the to school?
When I was kind of had a wild young adult adolescent period in my life. But anyway, when I moved to San Francisco in 1973, and I got a job because of my grandfather was a boat builder. Got a job working at the Maritime Museum there in San Francisco.
Okay.
And I was working on I don't know if you've spent any time in San Francisco, but they have a big sailing ship there. It's 300 feet long, Balclutha.
Okay.
Square rigger that was built in 1869 or so. Got a job helping restore that ship, and eventually ended up living on a paddle wheel tugboat that they had that was also part of the Maritime Museum that was moored alongside it. So one of the connections I made while there was this Ibris, this Danish skipper who had actually been around the Horn. Been around the Horn on sailing ships in his youth, and he was asked to put together a crew and go to the Faroe Islands and refit this sailing ship. It was being used as a fishing boat at that time. It was 127 foot, originally square topsail schooner, and to refit that and sail it back to San Francisco. And so I was the first person they picked to go over there, and the whole thing fell through on the day Nixon resigned, and I ended up working at a lumberyard there in the Faroe Islands, which is halfway between Iceland and Norway. It's just a dot on a map, but there's actually 16, I think, or 18 islands. And so after the whole thing fell through, I ended up going to Denmark, because that's Ibris told me if I ever go to there, he gave me a contact there to work. And so I went.
And you're sort of close-ish, at least comparatively.
Well, yeah, the Faroe Islands is a Denmark territory, a Danish territory, so that's how I ended up in Denmark. And, yeah.
We may come back to this, because I want to ask you about the tall ships, because that's in your bio, but I don't want to run out of time before we talk about, and so I read the Pigskin Heist. I dipped into The Trouble with Truffles, and it interested me that both are presented with a first-person protagonist, and they both seem to involve sports. So you had sort of described yourself as a storyteller,
right? And
I wondered if the first person is an extension of that, or is that's the way that you would approach a story? And were you in college or high school athletics, because you seem to speak about that more with insider knowledge that maybe other people don't have.
Right. Well, start with the Trouble with Truffles. I knew from the beginning of it that the story is about a celebrity TV chef in Portland. And she's a truffle expert, and she's helped, along with colleagues, to develop the local market. You find that out through the book. But the main piece about the story is that it's the organized crime families are trying to take over the truffle market in the West Coast, because it's really popular, really profitable. And so I knew from the beginning that I was going to have a male protagonist who was pretty tough, because he's going to have at least one encounter with the mafia folks, and you don't want a milquetoast kind of guy, doing that. So I made him a rugby player, and when I was in college, I lived across the street from the rugby pitch, and so I spent a lot of time with those folks, and really liked them. They were
it's a terrific game.
Oh yeah, it really is terrific. You don't realize
a rough game.
Tough game, yeah. It's very honest too. You just. But anyway, so that's why I had a truffle. That's why I have a rugby player is the narrator in this, and he becomes involved with the chef, and they end up fighting off the bad guys. And so.
But that wasn't you. I mean,
no.
You're not a rugby player.
No, I'm not. I wanted to be a football player when I was in high school. And, but I weighed 125 pounds, and and was 5'10" or whatever. And so I ended up sitting on the bench. So I was an expert at that, as you may have noticed in the book, the Pigskin Heist.
Dylan, right? Dylan.
Dylan
sits on the bench.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway. And I had a brother and a stepbrother, so there were three of us. And when I was in high school, we had the Hayes family down the block. They had sons, the exact same ages and the exact same.
Yeah, okay.
And so we would get together almost every day and either play football or basketball or golf. I started playing golf. I started as a caddy.
Okay.
When I was in high school and started playing golf and actually was on the golf team but that's another book.
That's okay. Well, you're anticipating me because I wondered if there's something in the works.
Well, actually, I've started a book, and it's a golf book, and it's going to be about a barefoot golfer, and this is kind of an interesting story because, anyway, it's a kid from poor family, and it's set in a town that's a lot like McMinnville,
Mm-hmm.
as is the Pigskin Heist.
Mm-hmm.
But his dad runs the local driving range, and they're a poor family, but the kid is an 8th grader, and the local high school lose 3 of their players, their golfers, during the COVID plague.
Oh, okay.
And so they're having to find somebody to fill those spots, and they end up hiring, or not hiring, but recruiting this 8th grader to be on the high school team.
Oh, okay.
And he can't afford golf shoes, and so the professor makes him wear his golf shoes on the first tournament they go to, and he ends up with blisters on his feet, and so
Sure.
the last day of the tournament he just takes his shoes off and beats everybody in the entire tournament.
Right.
Just easily beats everybody, and he's just a brilliant golfer, even though he's an 8th grader. And so that's the story I'm calling the Barefoot Golfer, and that's how it starts, and
Okay.
he becomes a celebrity and gets messy after that.
Well, I was going to say, that leads me to, when you write,
Mm-hmm.
do you have, Stephen King called it the ideal reader. Do you have somebody in mind that you're writing for?
I do that, but I always end up forgetting about that.
Okay.
But I want to write it for my sister or for Nancy,
Yeah.
My wife. So
Yeah.
But then I forget to do that, and it just sort of takes on a life of its own.
Okay.
Okay. I saw an interview with I think it was Terry Gross on NPR with a writer of some sort. I can't remember which one it was. But the question that she asked is that so many writers they talk about how the story, once they're writing it, the characters take on a life of their own.
You bet.
And there's a famous book called Breakfast of Champions by Irving, that's the whole book, is the narrator takes over the book and ends up being bitten by a dog, and it's just a wild story. But and so she asked that question: why do you have to struggle with that as a writer? And he said that, which I always thought this was really amazing. He said that your mind doesn't know that it's fiction.
Mm.
And I always thought that was a really interesting observation, that it feels like it's taken over this character and was going to,
Again, you're anticipating me because I just read. You may be familiar with Lonesome Dove.
Oh, sure.
Okay, and somebody asked McMurtry, the author, why Call, one of the protagonists, never acknowledged his son Newt.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry McMurtry said, I was surprised by that. I always thought he would. And isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
I mean, who's in charge here?
Yeah.
So then my question for you is, I know you've got these signposts or goalposts.
Yeah.
Has a character ever surprised you?
Huh.
Have they ever done something that you didn't anticipate?
No, but I don't know they haven't, but I do gather ideas from them, and then a lot of time weave that into the story.
Sure.
For example, on the Pigskin Heist, one of the sort of side stories is there's this big, huge natural football player, but the coach is a big
Trayvon?
Huh? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The coach is a racist and just a terrible man. And so he won't even let the best player he's got play on the team. You know, and the kid stutters. And I had read about trying to think of the country and western singer who stuttered.
Tillis?
Yeah, Mel Tillis.
Yeah.
And so I remembered reading a story about him years ago, and the way he didn't stutter when he sang.
Right.
And so he sort of developed this way of just, instead of talking, he would pretend like he was singing. And that's the way he got rid of the stutter.
Well, you used that word, and I can't remember it at the moment, but again, you made me look that up.
Yeah.
Okay. And that word and the explanation for that technique.
Yeah. So, you know, when you hear writers say that you should write what you know about, and I really think that is true. And so it just, a lot of the stuff that are in my books are just things that I happen to read about or happen to me or
well, and again, we're actually out of time, but in your bio, it looked like you had quite a varied background. You've been exposed to a lot of things. And I don't know what could be better for a writer.
No, that's true. It just gives you a broader world to deal with. So, I agree.
Well, we're out of time. But folks,
thank you for having me. It's been fun.
It is fun. And I'm going to, a little plug here. Kyle, I don't know if we put up Don's email, but if you have questions for Don, which you should, you can write to him. There it is. And I'm at stephenwlong.com, or that's not it. That's my website. stephen.w.long0110 So
good. Nobody's going to copy that one.
No. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Writing Life. Bye-bye. Thank you, Don.
Good. Oh, yeah, thank you. It's fun.
Was fun.
Yeah, good. I appreciate it.
I had more.